My name's Karen. I'm 25 and work a regular job. My grandpa, who looked after me, passed away 6 months back. Today's the day when the lawyer will read out Grandpa's will. So I went to his house with my older sister Susan, who's my only family. Our folks died in a crash 20 years ago, so we grew up with our grandparents. Grandma died from being sick a while ago, and since then, Grandpa's health kept getting worse. Worried about him, I moved into an apartment nearby and visited him often. Karen, you're not a kid anymore. It's weird to keep running back here, my grandpa used to say, though he'd chuckle anyway. Then, one day, when I came over like always, I found him in pain at the door. Panicked, I called for help, but he passed away suddenly. Quit summing out. Make some tea, at least, my sister's voice snapped me back. Right, the lawyer's coming, I replied, heading to the kitchen. Glancing back, I saw Susan lounging lazily on the floor, yawning. Even from the kitchen, her perfume was overwhelming. Same old Susan, I muttered, putting the kettle on. Susan never changed. She dyed her hair since she was a teenager, hung out with troublemakers, and never worked. Grandma and Grandpa always had to clean up her messes, and it seems she's still the same even as an adult. She's always bouncing from one part-time gig to another without any stability. I knew she'd been hitting up Grandpa for cash when I wasn't around. I could picture her finding it all too bothersome if it wasn't for the inheritance. Ah, you must be the lawyer. Thanks for being here today. My sister's formal tone announced the lawyer's arrival. Rushing, I filled the teapot with leaves and headed to the door. Thanks for coming, I greeted him. I'd seen him at the funeral. His eyes were kind, like Grandpa's. His lawyer badge gleamed on his chest. After paying respects to Grandpa's portrait, he sipped the tea I served and then pulled out Grandpa's will. It was entrusted to him while Grandpa was alive. The will stated, my sister Susan would get $20 million in cash, and I would inherit the house and land. My sister burst into laughter upon hearing the will. $20 million for the older sis and just an old house for you. How funny. Fits someone as dull as you, she mocked. It's not just the house. There's also the land, I shot back, but she only laughed sarcastically. Psh, this land in the middle of nowhere isn't worth much. I'd have preferred cash. Guess Grandpa favored me after all. I have to admit, it's a bit surprising. I guess Grandpa wanted me to take care of his cherished house and land, where he spent his life with Grandma, I said, reflecting on the will. A house and land? That's pretty cool, isn't it, Ryan? My boyfriend exclaimed, surprised by the news. I shook my head, silently conveying, it's not all that great, really. My sister got $20 million in cash. That's more impressive. Saying it aloud felt empty, even though I was just being honest. Wow, she's got looks and money now. She's on a winning streak, Brian remarked, unaware of how insensitive his comment sounded. Catching my glance, he quickly added, but your happiness means more to me than any money, Karen. Brian and I have been together since I started working. We met at a party, and being the same age, we hit it off. I've introduced him to my grandpa and my sister. Though he hasn't popped the question yet, I've been thinking about marriage. Today, on our first outdoor date, I ended up sharing the news of my inheritance with Brian. I guess I did it because I envisioned him as my future husband. Little did I know I would regret it later. A few days later, I went to the family home I inherited from my grandfather. I planned to tidy up and organize his belongings. The property was spacious, but the house was simple. I thought I could handle it alone as I looked around and contemplated. It's close to my job. Maybe I should move in here. Living peacefully with a cat doesn't sound too bad. No rent to worry about, and any upkeep expenses should be manageable since I've been saving up. Maybe someday with Brian. Blushing at the thought, I shook my head to clear it. Ready to get started on cleaning, I rolled up my sleeves, but then my phone rang. My sister's name flashed on my phone screen. Hey Karen, having a blast all alone in that old house? My sister sounded tipsy, elongating her words in her usual manner. But today it was worse than usual. Looks like you're hitting the bottle, huh? It's still daytime, I remarked with a sigh, to which she let out an exaggerated sigh in return. Oh, you're such a goody two-shoes. I was right, she was definitely drinking. I was thinking about moving in here eventually. I replied, hoping to wrap up the conversation quickly. Really? I'm lounging in a fancy hotel suite right now, my sister exclaimed in an overly dramatic tone. Guess who's keeping me company? I have no clue. Boring. That attitude won't win Brian over, she teased. What? Sorry, Karen. Brian's voice suddenly chimed in, catching me off guard. Confusion swirled in my mind, but I pushed away any unsettling thoughts. My imagination was playing tricks on me again, conjuring up absurd scenarios. Shocked, huh? My sister's spiteful voice cut through. Ever since you introduced him to me, I thought Brian was quite a catch, she bragged, recounting how she'd been drawn to Brian since I introduced them, how she found out where he worked because of me, and how she'd approached him as soon as he finished work. He had eagerly gone along with her, telling her she was far more attractive than me. I listened in disbelief, unable to find words. Karen, I'm so sorry. Brian's voice came next. Please tell me this is a mistake. I tried to speak, but he continued. As a guy, I couldn't pass up the chance. I do feel guilty, but come on, who can resist a beautiful woman with $20 million, right? His words, asking for understanding, left me feeling drained of emotion. A chill washed over me, as if all warmth had been sucked away. You know what? I don't meet a man like you, I declared. My sister's laughter echoed loudly in the background. The voice on the phone reverted to hers. Well, that's the way it goes. Let's not pretend to be sisters anymore, okay? I don't want you running to me just because you're broke. With those cutting words, she hung up. Overwhelmed by delayed emotions, all I could do was cry out. It's been 5 years since then. A cat was curled up on my lap, peacefully dozing in front of my laptop. It purred contentedly in its sleep. Today was my day off, but I still had some work to finish up at home. Oh no, this won't help get the work done, I thought guiltily as I gently moved the cat aside. Just as I reached for my phone, it began to ring. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. Thinking it might be work-related, I answered without hesitation. Hey Karen, it's been ages. The voice on the other end greeted me, instantly recognizable as my sister's. I froze at the sound of her familiar tone. It's me, Karen. I can tell by the way you say hello. After all, I'm your big sister. 5 years had passed, making Susan 34 now. I couldn't help but smirk at her unchanged manner of speaking. You're still the same. By the way, I came home, and there's a hotel in its place. Did you sell the house? That's none of your business. Ah, come on. It's a pretty fancy hotel, right? You must have made a good amount of cash. Growing irritated, I was about to hang up when she launched into chatter about her current situation. According to Susan, she'd blown through the inheritance in just 2 years and now found herself in significant debt. Even Brian, who she was still with, seemed to be struggling financially. I was left speechless. Honestly, I couldn't care less. Sorry, but that's not happening, I replied calmly, despite Susan's yelling. I had always questioned why Grandpa had divided his estate that way. But on the day you took Brian from me and cut ties, I finally understood. I began to speak slowly. 5 years ago, when Brian ended things, I was devastated. After sobbing my heart out, I sat numbly in my room, lost in thought. I'm such a fool, I whispered, tears streaming down my face once more. My gaze fell on a painting I had crafted as a child and given to my grandfather. He had cherished it, framing it and displaying it with pride. With shaky hands, I retrieved the painting. Grandpa, as waves of nostalgia and loneliness washed over me, tears blurring my vision, I noticed something fall from the back of the frame. Picking it up, I realized it was a fresh sheet of notepaper addressed to me. I remembered how, as a child, I used to stick notes on the back of that frame, exchanging secret messages with my grandfather. It was like our family journal. Knowing I would inherit the house, he must have assumed I would find this note. I was grateful I noticed it. The thought of leaving it unnoticed sent shivers down my spine. To Karen, the letter began, dated just before my grandfather's passing. I knew you'd find this letter eventually. You're probably wondering why I divided my estate this way, giving cash to your sister and leaving you the old house and land. It may seem like I favored Susan, but that's not true. Despite appearances, I wanted to leave most of my estate to you, who cared for me until the end. Finally, everything clicked into place. Despite Susan's words, Grandpa valued me more, huh? I'm sure Susan's cruel remarks hurt deeply at the time. Despite my greater love for Grandpa, a pang of jealousy, I continued reading the letter. But Susan wouldn't be satisfied with a fair split. This girl, even as her grandfather, I must admit, she's terribly greedy, just like her grandpa. She even stole my boyfriend. That's what I want to tell him deep down. I thought to myself. That's why I set things up this way. At first glance, Susan may seem to have gotten the better deal, but she won't pay much attention to your share. According to Grandpa's letter, the value of this land in our area keeps increasing due to ongoing urban development. It may not be worth Susan's $20 million yet, but its value will surely rise in the future. As I read further, my eyes widened in surprise. You can live here if you're attached to it, or you can sell it when its value rises enough to make a good profit. All I want is for you to be happy. After conveying the letter's content, Susan clicked her tongue and muttered, "Old hag." I did live in that house for a while, but when I got married, I decided to sell it, just like Grandpa's letter suggested. The land value had risen enough by then. "I'm not lending you any money," Susan said, sounding frustrated. Then, as if struck by an idea, she added, "Hey, how about this? I'll give Brian back to you. Help out your sister. It's a good deal, right?" In that moment, something inside me snapped. Enough is enough. Grandpa took care of you, and yet you've shown no gratitude. I'm disgusted by that. You're not my sister anymore, and I'm already married. I don't need Brian, and I don't even want to see his face. Stay out of my life for good, I declared before hanging up. I quickly blocked her number, and my cat, sensing the tension, retreated to the bed. I scooped up my cat and whispered, "I'm sorry." Soon after, Susan and Brian barged into our old house. Were they trying to return Brian to me? They seemed to have misunderstood something, yelling about being my family, even though I had already sold the land and had no ties to it anymore. It's pretty straightforward for those two. I sold the land, and an inn was built on it. Therefore, I must be the owner of the inn. Naturally, the staff reported them to the police. They were arrested for damaging several items in the inn. Additionally, it was uncovered that they had engaged in marriage fraud for money in the past. It seems they'll be sent to prison together. I was also questioned by the police, but I quickly proved that I had no involvement. Since we were estranged, I was released. As my husband and I were leaving the station, we heard shouting and turned to look. There were Susan and Brian, looking completely different. Thankfully, they didn't notice us. Both of them had disheveled hair, worn-out clothes, and looked nothing like the people I remembered. Especially Susan, who never went without makeup and stylish attire, looked drastically different. They were likely being transferred to another location. As I watched them, a wave of melancholy washed over me. My husband and I exchanged a glance, and he offered his hand. I took it, and together we left the police station. "Are you all right?" My husband's eyes were full of concern as he looked at me. "I'm okay. I have you and our little one," I said, placing my hand on my slightly swollen belly and returning his smile. "There's a new member of our family growing inside me. Money is important, but there's something even more precious. That's what I want to instill in our child with you by my side."